We get a lot of requests for what would be a profitable strat, an easier one for the newer guys to run, and one that has a lot of range and depth is StepGain. I highly encourage you to learn a little bit about StepGain, but nothing you're going to run is going to be profitable if you can't tune or don't understand some market basics. You bought a bot, an extension of you. It's going to trade based on how you tell it to buy and sell. You didn't buy artificial intelligence. You bought an extension of you. So with that being said, some of the most important things to really understand to tune well would be framing your trade ideas in buy and sell settings. And for that, a lot of times I like to explain it on a scale of like 1 to 10 for the analogy. So in your settings, you got buy side settings and you have sell side settings. And there's no substitute for learning proper market structure. Okay, that helps you tune better for your entries and exits by hand, or if you want a bot trade, to give it proper entry and exits. If you just flip some shit on and you're like, oh man, my bot didn't buy right. Well, you said it wrong, man. Like, it's on you. So again, you bought an extension of you, not AI. So the thing to do is start to study market structure. And in the meantime, start to learn StepGain. And some of the basics to really help you learn that are the 1 to 10. So this is probably the easiest way to explain it. So on the buy side, when we speak about settings, we're speaking in terms of where your bot will enter, okay? Tuning for the buy side range from super loose settings, say on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being real light, man. Like, you're going to buy anything that moves. You know, it's like 0.1. So let's go take a look at that. So in a StepGain setting, in your buy side, 2.5 is stiff. Okay, if I drop this down to 0.1, you're talking 0.1% below the lowest EMA. Okay, so back here on this chart, you see these EMAs over here, 0.1% below. Okay, there it wouldn't have bought, there it would buy, there it wouldn't buy, there it would buy. Okay, now if you tune that back up to like 2.5, like I had, like you can see here, I have no buys today. I got left out entirely because I was tuned, you know, more at like the 3 level, expecting more of a pullback, not a push. Okay, so we'll pop back over there and kind of look at that. So far, we're looking at StepGain buy level 1. Okay, over here where it says StepGain buy level, don't get that confused with it actually being the level. Okay, you're defining the kind of buying you want it to do. So that box right there, StepGain buy level 1, okay, is this StepGain buy level. See, it's missing the 1. This is the actual box for the percentage. So StepGain box 1, 2, and 3. And this is going to be 1, 2, or 3 itself. So if we were to put a 1 in here and pop over here, what we've told the bot that it's going to do, automation again, under that, it's going to buy when the price drops below buy level 1. Okay, this box here. And the trend reverses, or price hits buy level 2. Okay, so if we put a 1 in this box, we've told it we're going to use box 1 and 2, and we've tuned box 1 to 1% below the lowest EMA. So if it's going along and doing its thing and it never reverses, when it hits box level 2, which we set to 12%, no matter what, it's going to buy at the end. But have we had it set like the way we have it set right here, it's going to trail along, and if it gets to, you know, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 and reverses back a little bit, it's going to go ahead and buy for us. Okay, and that's kind of good. It's like a little bit of a mini trailing, and that'll help you tune some things. All right, so for right now, we'll just ignore the secondary boxes and all that kind of stuff. But just so you kind of get an idea of what we're talking about, buy 2, if you were to put a 2 in this box, it's going to buy based on when the price drops below buy level 2 and the trend reverses or hits buy level 3, which is the same thing as like 1, you know, because it's only using 2 of the boxes. 3 is uniquely different. If we were to go over here and throw a 3 in this box on the buying style, buy when the price drops below buy level 3 and the trend reverses. There's no secondary box. It's just, that's that. Buy box 3. Like I have 70 in here. It's never going to buy until it hits 70. And as soon as it hits 70, it's going to continue on. It can hit 100. It's not going to buy. But the second it switches back a little bit, we don't know what gun has it set at, but we've all tested it pretty extensively in the room, and it seems it's like 0.1. So if it reverses like 0.1, you know, it's going to buy anything over 70. All right. So we'll go back to the actual settings again on the side. So in framing your trade ideas for the sell side settings between 1 and 10 on a scale, we talked about a 1 being basically as low as you can go at 0.1. 1% below the lowest EMA, it's just going to buy, man. Like you're hitting it anytime it pulls back to there. That would be better for front side pushes, you know, minor pullbacks. Okay. And 10 being crypto's dead, dude. 99% pullback. You're talking like end of the fucking world, you know, SEC decided they're going to ban all crypto and they're arresting people. Okay. A 10 at that end is like, you're never going to take a buy until 10. 2 through 9 are gradual increases in scale. So if I'm talking like, hey man, like what's your buy setup? And you're like, oh man, I'm running like 2. Okay, well 2 is like 0.5. And a 3 is like 1%. And a 4 is like, you know, 5%. You're talking in graduations of scale of how far down a pullback you want before it will consider its first buy. Okay, so as you can see right there, when we first started the video, I had like 2.5. Well, what did that look like actually in the bot? Well, it left me out because it never pulled back that far. As you could see, it just barely rode below the line. I tuned for more drops, and this was pops. It was front side pushes, and I tuned for, you know, pullbacks. So that's my fault. Now, as far as had I had a very loose entry like a 1 and I was running like a 1-3, that would have been great. I would have got a good percentage of this. I probably would have got out around there because it looks like 100 to 106. You know, you're talking that's like 6% gain, okay? That would have been really great. But a lot of guys would be like, oh, I sold right here. Oh, I missed the whole run. Well, you had too light of a setting. You tuned like 1 and 1 or 1 and 2 or 1 and 3, you know, for the sell side setting being a graduation scale as well as 1 through 10. And if you look at that, sell side settings are the same way. 1 through 10 with 1 being super easy to exit the trade after an entry setting of 1 on the scale would be equal to something like 0.1% gain with no other overrides. Okay, that's more advanced on StepGain. That's a little something extra you can get into. But right now we're just setting the buy and the sell exit for box 1. With, you know, 10 being holy fuck, man. Like we landed on the moon, Lambos and bitches. Like that's like 100%, 200%, 1000% gain. Well, a lot of guys get in here and they tune that way. They tune super light to get in, and they tune like tomorrow we're going to be at like 700,000 on BTC. You're just going to get bagged up, dude. That's fucking stupid. And that's the main problem we have is people don't understand the graduating scale on buy and sell. So like a 1 is, oh my God, you know, I'm so lucky. Give me any small gains above break even. And 10 again is, you know, fuck you. Like we're sunbathing on the moon. 2 through 9, gradual increases in exit numbers. So if you tell me like, oh dude, hey, I tuned to like, you know, a 2 on the 1 to 10 scale. Okay, well, you probably have like a 0.5 exit, you know, 0.5% above whatever. At a 5, I expect you're running like, you know, 10%. Everyone's scale is a little bit different, but, you know, just kind of like fill that in, dude, with 1 being the lightest exit to the stiffest, craziest fucking exit, all right? Overrides are extra tweaks beyond the base strategy of entry and exits of the 1 to 10, which are, you know, the more situational entry and exits. So maybe you want to throw on like MFI or something. I run a lot of MFI versus RSI because what happens if you tune for a 10? Okay, that's great. You're up there. And do you sell? You know, you're like, fuck, man, like April 1st, we went from, you know, like 3,300 to like 4,500 and then 5,000. Is that the top? I mean, given the all-time high is 19,000, probably not. But for this particular part of the run, you're talking you've got, you know, 40% pop. And is that enough? Do you want to get out? Well, you might want to throw on like MFI, which is a money flow index, and it starts to track when there's a pullback. So you could, you know, try to possibly sell that top, cash out, get back into, you know, whatever alt you use, whether it's USD or some other crazy crypto. And when the price pulls back, say like when we had that pullback from, you know, 5,500 to like 49, you could have took your money and re-entered. And, you know, if the pullback was good to you and you're like, well, 4,900 we think's going to hold, you made more money. That's trading. This isn't a video for holding. Like if you want to hold, like get the fuck off my channel. Like I don't play that shit. Like I'm a trader. If you don't plan on botting and trading, like just sell your bot, dude, and just buy some fucking crypto and put it away and don't come back. But if you're complaining too, like, oh, I'm always bagged, I'm always fucked over, like, well, your bot's not broken, man. You just don't have any idea how to tune. And again, graduating scales 1 through 10, get that down first. and try to compare that to market structure. So we'll look at a little bit of market structure and see like where would be the best place to apply some of that. Also, if you want to look up things like money flow index and all that, go to Investopedia, and it just straight tells you anything that you see in the bot over here as far as like the overrides go. You have a ton of options, man. You got stocks, you got EMA spread, you got ADX, you got MFI. If you send me settings and all this shit's checked off and you're complaining, I know you lie that you read the wiki, and I know you haven't looked nothing up. It just makes you look bad. So before you go tackle someone and be like, oh, I need help, man, this thing is broken. Generally, it's you. Generally, you have all kinds of crazy shit checked off. And we know you didn't read it because obviously you don't run MFI with MA spread and fucking stock. Just go to Google and go to Investopedia and just look that shit up, dude. It's so simple. It tells you exactly what it does. Read it twice, read it 3 times, and then go back and look and be like, oh, yeah, okay. If I apply that, that'll probably do this here. That's a little more advanced tuning. StepGain is very versatile over the long run of its use. Once you get really good, there's better stuff than StepGain, but it's a bridge between starting and learning to trade and learning to really, really fucking tune. So on that note, if you pop over here, right now I've got the basic settings that we were looking at. And this was, what was the return on this? So I ran this back tested from, it looks like, thought I'd ran it from April, but I guess not. Let me just check. So you got a couple choices too. If you run like martingales, which are double up, that's something advanced too in StepGain. When you first get in, you got to decide, how are you going to set up? Are you going to set up that you expect nothing but upside, that you didn't set up for any downside? Well, if you do that, what happens right here? Okay, you got no money to double up, so that you take a paper cut and you take, a stop limit, or you retune and you double up, or you just change at the last sale if you figure that was the top, and then you change your numbers for entry and exit being lighter or stiffer. So here we ran, let's just check. All right, so I had set this up for martingales for doubling up. Let's just say starting capital is 5,000. Every trade here is 1,000. I left, 4 to 1 behind so that I can dig myself out if there was a problem with the settings or I didn't get to them in time. So here we're running StepGain on Binance. 15-minute chart on LTC. No trailing, nothing like that. This does its own thing. With buy level at 0.1, meaning, number 1, like the easiest entry you can get. Like it's going to take every fucking entry it can get. Every time it remotely pulls back, this piece of shit's going to buy something. All right. You're just in. There's no waiting. And that's exactly why it looks like this. It got in every fucking chance it got, and it got in too early here. Now, a lot of you guys are like, oh, look, it did so good, and the bot fucked up. No, man, you had it set at 1. It's buying at 1.1 below the EMA. Well, there's 0.1, man. Well, what happens if that's your entry right there like this was? Well, you sit out from the 15th all the way to the 24th. All right? Because it never came back high enough to exit. So that's again about the exits. How tall is your exit? 1 to 10. Are you trying to hit any little move? If you tune too early and too light on the front side, you end up with every little entry off peaks. And if it goes down versus continuing to climb, over here you got away with that shit. Over here you're not. So you have to really kind of know a little bit about market structure and know how to change the boxes from 1 to 10, stiffer or softer, taller on the exits or right away. So right now we ran this with 0.1 entry like we said, all right? And this was profitable strategy. It was, 8.42% in a few days, but it could be much better. You also can't tune one strat to master all of this. It's not going to happen. You're going to tune for a section of upflow, all right, trending up, that is going to be great. Because if here you were to tune, for deep pullbacks like this, like a 5%, you're going to get left out. There was no 5% pullback at all. That's it. You sat out. And then over here it excelled. You probably got in right here and then you got out over there. You have to adjust them continually. Okay. There's no perfect setting. That's the first thing you really have to understand, is that nothing is going to mimic all types of order flow, not where it starts switching back so far. Because if you're set for minor pullbacks and tall exits, then you're set for the front side of the bull run. If you start tuning for the back side of drops, you're set for a very, very, very deep entry, like 10, 12, 20% pullbacks and a 1 or 2% profit because you're trying to trade bounces. So if that was 20% and you tuned for a 2% exit, you got out there. But then you never got back in because it sideways consolidated. So you really have to have a plan for uptrend, downtrend, holding sideways, kind of ranging, and just trending in general. So there's multiple setups, and that's why StepGain is so good, because if you know a little bit about market structure, you can just pop right in and say, oh man, I haven't got no buys today, which I haven't. You've seen my chart, because I was tuned for more drop. I hadn't expected any more pop right now. Okay. And I'm happy sitting out, not making gains on that versus catching bags, because I really expected a drop. That's fine. If it holds and it proves it to me that it's good, I'll come back over here and I'll change, my StepGain from 2%, 3% that I was running to, 0.5. Now, along with that, you have some options that you're like, man, I want to get those pullbacks, but what if it's not a good time for that pullback? What if it's, going to crash a lot more? Well, that's where you get those overrides like we talked about. Throw on MFI. MFI is going to give you some settings that look like this. And so this is the RSI, relative strength index, and this is the money flow index. So this is just buy and sell. Okay. Money flow index is, where is this specifically? Unlike conventional oscillators like the relative strength index, the money flow index incorporates both price and volume data. Okay, so it's not just the price, it's also the volume. It's not fantastically perfect, but it's better than just running boxes 1 through 10. Okay, so I have a chance down here to change a little bit. So 1 to 99. Below 10 is what the guys that made MFI 4 consider to be an absolute pullback. There should be a reversal. Doesn't mean there's gonna be. If you go read that, it'll tell you, but below 10, pretty much a reversal at the bottom. Above 90 is pretty much a reversal at the top. Anything in between is just kind of, closer. For me, I found that we're still slightly uptrending, so I've got a 33 on here because I want to run a little bit less of an entry now. I may want to run like 1%, but I don't want to run 1% willy-nilly and just be like, hey, 1%, it's going to be a great buy, because then what happens is this. Oh, yeah, there's 1%, and then it falls more. But with the MFI on, it looked more like this, all right? There was that first little kind of pullback, but look, it was still high as fuck. So no buy. And that was fine with me, because to me, that's still oversold. It's an oversold-ish territory. I'm fine sitting out of this. If this consolidates and pops up more, that's great. I'm still not going to chase that, but I will adjust it after it sits sideways for a while. All right, and there's your second choice. So if I get into my StepGain buy at 1% and the trailing is great and it's moving on and it doesn't switch back at all, it just keeps dropping like a fucking rock, because it does. It did this the other day on BTT to me. I woke up to, I had, I think, 5% for StepGain level 1, 10 on 2. If it hits that, it's automatically going to buy. But I was also running dollar cost averages, and I run a 12% buy down. I hit all 3 buy downs while I was sleeping. It just got fucking annihilated because BTT had already had a 200% gain in like 3 days. Well, I nailed it. I did really good on the way up. I thought I turned it off going to sleep, and I didn't. So again, if you're tuned for light entry and taller exits, you're going to get nailed. On this override for dollar cost average, you have to go read on these how these work, but this is a percentage of how much to double you up. So I'm not running a full 1% of that. This is something you can also do to limit risk. If you feel that this order flow is topping out and you want to reduce risk, but you still think maybe there's some more, what you would want to do is step over to like your balance and reduce your trading limit. Okay. That's why I reduced mine down to like 200, because I expect to scale in a couple times. If I expect to get 1 or 2 lower EMAs to get hit, right, I'll pop over and I'll start to adjust other things besides this box and the sell box, or even for the indicator, I will go over to our dollar cost average, and I'll adjust this to like a half or 1 or 2 even. If I feel like I've reduced the trade limit far enough and I feel like, okay, 1 or 2 levels down, if I get hit, I'll use this to scale me in because I trust that it's only going to hit 1 or 2, but I don't want to get too heavy up above just in case. So I'll still leave a fair amount of money behind in case that this is still wrong to just totally bail my ass out. But I thought about that prior to going in, and this is where I would adjust that. So I said, okay, I'll allow it to go 3 times. Between 1 and 5 generally is normal for me, and I'll adjust how much of the initial trading capital. So if this number was like 5,000 for my entry, I'm definitely not going to run 1 here and 3 here, or 2 here and 5 here. Like that would just be way too much even for me. Like I can't afford that. It's too much. So you have to kind of look at how much money you actually have and think about how many times and how far could it drop. How are we tuned on the front side, 1 through 10 for entry? How are we tuned on the back side? And if we over-tuned, if we missed an exit and we have to take a little bit of a pullback, do we even want to run double up, or do we just want to cut the trade? I run 99 stop limit. I always just average out. I leave enough money always behind to do so. I never push all my cash in. That's some more advanced stuff. Like I said, StepGain has a lot of range and a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of tweaks, but the place to start, okay, is always just 1 through 10. Start to understand that. 1 through 10. Make 1 through 10 match this. You got to kind of look at order flow and say, okay, we've been sideways for a couple days. Let's it's holding. So over in here, I'd probably start to run like a 0.5% pullback and like a 1% exit, because looking at this little choppy box, or even this, if I felt like it was going to keep holding on for a lot of days, that's what I would do. Now, when that happened, of course, I got left out, or I got a buy here and I got an exit right there. And that's where guys start complaining, oh, look, the bot sold so early. Right, man, but you were tuned for this, okay? And then the other complaint is, oh, look, I got a bag way over here. Well, right, because you were tuned for, low entry and super tall exits, and then you got a fat fucking pullback. So that's where you adjust the boxes first and foremost, 1 through 10. Just start there. That's the place to start trading, looking at market structure, going into your bot, and going, okay, 0.1. Let's see, do I want to run a 0.1? Do I see that this is in an uptrend? Do I get very much pullbacks? How much pullback do we get on BTC? $100, $500, $1,000? If it's at 8,000 and it's 85 a couple hours later, and you've seen it hold over 8, you're probably gonna have to run like a 0.1 to a 1% pullback to even get an entry. But if you see it getting topped out and you feel like, oh man, it's been 8,500 for a while, it's struggling, it might go back to 7,500. Increase the box one, dude. Increase it to like 2, 3, 4, 5%. Reduce your trading limit, and or use double up to get in, and or stay out, and or use all your money and use a stop limit, but you'll probably get hit. It depends how wide the stop is. Don't widen it up so far that if you're running 20% and it drops 20% and you get hit and you're like, dude, that hurt. Well, 20% of like $100,000 is pretty bad for some people. 20% of a couple $100 is not so bad for someone who's just kind of, checking things out. All right. So you'll adjust your box and graduations of what you're expecting in pullbacks and or ramps. Sells the same way. If you're expecting a lot of pullback and a lot of little choppy pops on the way down, then you'll have to take like 5% entry and like a 0.5% exit. Well, people are always like, oh, but I want more. You can't force the market to give you more than it's going to give you. It's setting up the way that it's setting up. So that, again, you really have to understand market structure to know how to tune these boxes, okay? And that's really where all that starts. Then from there, you do graduate on to overrides, and you decide either cutting losses at stop limits, or you reduce your entry to begin with and you run double ups. And I run RSI on that, which doesn't mean shit really, because I use 100. So anytime it's under 100, it's able to buy. I just use that to negate it. So anytime that it drops 12% from my last buy, I'm going to double up. And to me, like, I run that setting when it's shaky, because it is shaky right now. If it was less shaky, I would increase my trading limit. I would increase my double up cap, and I would move my double up buy down to like 5%. And also on that, I do run a trail me double up, and I run it at 0.5. Now, if you're running a double up at like 1%, don't run that shit. You're wasting time. Don't run a double up trail me unless you're running a pretty deep one, because you have to give it some range. It's chopping off. It could, get you a double up at 11.5. It could keep trailing down. It's hit or miss. So don't run it on something super tight. But those are your main areas where you can set up StepGain to have a lot of versatility, and you can just jump in and be like, oh man, this is uptrending. I want to go change my box because it's clearly trending. I want to, entry now, and I want to stiffen up how far the exit is because it's gonna run. It looks like it's gonna go to 125. So I want to do something realistic. It has 10% range. So set your range realistically on your sell exit to something that might match that. Those are your options really for StepGain and all the little nuances. Anything beyond that you had a question about, because StepGain is actually pretty in-depth overall, there is a lot of areas that you can tweak it. And if you have any more questions, pop into the room with us, because I'm even hesitant to, my video is so long right now, to even go any further, but there's so much more you can do with it. Just real quick, something else you can do for indicators. You can change the length of your slow and your fast EMA. And people are going to be like, what the fuck? You can change the length of your MFI candles, okay, to make it more responsive. There's a guy in our room that's running MFI on 2, and he's running 85 and 15. So basically the only thing that is dictating his buys is capitulation of when it hits 15 on the MFI, it buys. So when it hits 85, it sells. He's doing fantastic with it in a ping pong style market. It's just absolutely fantastic. But then it popped and he was like, dude, I got fucked. I got left behind. Right. Because you got that sell on 85, but it continued to ramp. It never came back down to 15 to buy. So I'm hesitant to say any more of, all the nuances you can do with StepGain, because it probably isn't to your benefit in the beginning. But definitely check out StepGain. If you got any questions, come hit any of us up. There's a lot of us that tune it. It's a very versatile strat. Good luck.